I spent nights hungry, days working harder, and weeks saving silently for her happiness. But when I finally gifted her the necklace she longed for, she smiled at me and said her smile already belonged to someone else. I'm writing this because I need to get it out. Because 3 months ago, I thought I was the good guy. The provider. The one who sacrificed everything for love. I was wrong about everything. Sarah had been staring at that necklace in the jewelry store window for 8 months. Every time we walked past downtown, she'd stop. Her fingers would press against the glass like she was trying to touch something sacred. A delicate gold chain with a small diamond pendant. Nothing flashy. Just, perfect for her. Maybe someday. She'd always say, pulling her hand back. When we're not so tight on money. But I saw how her eyes lingered. How she'd glance back one more time before walking away. So I started skipping lunches. 5 days a week, I'd tell her I already ate, then sit in my car during lunch breaks staring at my empty hands. The hunger became background noise after a while. Like tinnitus, but in stomach. I picked weekend shifts at the warehouse. Loading trucks until my back screamed. Sarah thought I was being responsible, building our future. She'd massage my shoulders and tell me how proud she was of me. Worked so hard for us, she'd whisper into my neck. I never told her about the separate savings account. About the crumpled bills I'd stuff into an old coffee can every Friday. 20 here, 50 there. Whatever I could scrape together without her noticing. The necklace cost the thirders $200. It might as well have been $1 million. But I was determined. Sarah deserved beautiful things. She deserved someone who could give her the world. And I was going to prove I was that someone. 6 months of this. 6 months of pretending I wasn't constantly dizzy from hunger. 6 months of lying about why I couldn't go out with friends anymore. Saving money, I'd say. Which wasn't technically a lie. The worst part. Sarah never asked for any of it. She never complained about our tight budget, or pushed me to work more. She was happy with movie nights at home and cheap takeout dinners. But I needed to prove something. To her. That I was enough. The day I finally had enough saved, I felt like a king walking into that jewelry store. The saleswoman recognized me. I'd been coming in every few weeks to make sure the necklace was still there. Sometimes bringing Sarah just to see her face light. Special occasion. The saleswoman asked as she carefully placed it in a velvet box. Just because, I said. She's worth it. I planned everything perfectly. Dinner at our favorite little Italian place. Nothing fancy, but where we had our first date 3 years ago. Sarah wore this blue dress that made her look like something out of a dream. We talked about everything and nothing. Work drama. Her sister's wedding plans. Whether we should get a cat. Normal couple stuff that felt precious because I knew was about to make it perfect. After dessert, I pulled out the small box. My hands were shaking. What's this? She asked, but she already knew. Her eyes went wide in that way that makes heart race. Open it. She did. Slowly, like she was afraid it might disappear. When she saw the necklace, she didn't squeal or gasp like in the movies. She just froze. Stared at it like it was radioactive. Marcus, she whispered. We can't afford this. I've been saving, I said, reaching across to take her hand. I wanted to surprise. I see how look at it every time we walk past that store. Deserve beautiful things, Sarah. Deserve everything. She was quiet for so long I started to panic. Maybe I'd miscalculated. Maybe she thought it was too much too soon. We'd been talking about moving in together officially, maybe engagement in another year or two. Then she started crying. Not happy tears. The kind that start silent and build until whole body shakes. Sarah, what's wrong? If don't like it. I can't accept this. She said, closing the box with a snap. Marcus, there's something I need to tell. Point. The restaurant suddenly felt too loud. Too bright. Like everyone was watching us, waiting for the punchline of a joke I didn't understand. I've been seeing someone else, she said. The words hit like a physical. Like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed everything vital until it burst. What? For 3 months. I didn't mean for it to happen, it just did. And I can't keep pretending anymore. Especially not with giving me something so expensive, so thoughtful. It's not fair to pawn. 3 months. 3 months while I was skipping meals. 3 months while I was working weekends and hiding money and planning this perfect surprise. Who? I asked because apparently David. From my office. The new marketing director. David. I'd met him at her company Christmas party. Tall, expensive suit, the kind of laugh that fills a room. Everything I wasn't. I'm so sorry. She continued, and maybe she meant it. Or such a good man, Marcus. Deserves someone who can love completely. Someone who isn't already in love with someone else. Already in love. With someone else. I sat there holding a Furs 200 necklace that suddenly felt like it weighed nothing and everything at once. All those nights I went to bed hungry. All those extra hours breaking my back. Also I could give her something beautiful, while she was giving herself to someone else. How long have been planning to leave me? I asked. I wasn't planning anything. I've been trying to figure out how to tell. I didn't want to pile. But did me every day for 3 months while I worked into the ground for porn. She reached across the table, but I pulled back. Don't, I said. Please don't. I paid the check. Left the necklace box on the table between us like evidence of my stupidity. Walked out into the cold without looking back. That was 3 months ago. Sarah's been living with David ever since. They got engaged last week. I saw the ring on her Instagram story. Much bigger than the necklace I couldn't afford. I'm still paying off the credit card I maxed out for dinner reservations, and gas money for all those extra shifts. Still catching on sleep. Still trying to figure out how someone can work so hard to prove their love to someone who stopped loving them months ago. The necklace is still in my sock drawer. I can't return it, and I can't throw it away. It just sits there reminding me that good intentions and empty stomachs don't make worthy of someone's heart. Sometimes I wonder if she ever really loved me, or if I was just convenient until something better came along. But mostly I try not to wonder anything at all. The first week after Sarah left, I convinced I was handling it well. I went to work. Came home. Ate cereal for dinner because cooking for one felt like admitting defeat. I even managed to sleep a few hours each night, though I'd wake reaching for someone who wasn't there. But then people started finding out. Sarah worked downtown. I worked at the warehouse on the outskirts of town. Different worlds, different people. I thought I could control the narrative, maybe tell people we just grew apart. Mutual decision, clean break. The first person who knew was Jake, my coworker. We'd been friends since high school, and he'd met Sarah dozens of times at barbecues and birthday parties. Dude, I saw Sarah at Murphy's pub last night, he said during our smoke break. She was all over some guy in a fancy suit. Thought maybe we're out of town or something. We're broke, I said, not looking at him. Oh. Long pause. Sorry man. When? Last week. Jake did the math. Could see it on his face. Last week. But they looked pretty comfortable for people who just met. That's when it hit me. Everyone was going to know. Everyone was going to figure out she didn't leave me for someone new. She left me for someone she'd been with while we were together. Within 3 days, the story spread through our friend group like a virus. Sarah hadn't been subtle. Apparently, she'd been bringing David to places where our mutual friends might see them for weeks. I was the only one who didn't know. I thought knew. Amy said when she called. Sarah's best friend, someone I'd considered a friend too. I thought maybe had an arrangement or something. She seemed so happy. An arrangement. Like I'd given her permission to destroy me. How long did everyone know? I asked. Silence. Amy. How long? Marcus, don't do this to Ba. How long? Since February. February. 5 months. 5 months of people watching me work for someone who was publicly me. I started avoiding places where I might see people I knew. The grocery store became a strategic mission planned for off-peak hours. I stopped going to our usual hangout spots. Deleted my social media accounts after seeing Sarah's happy photos with David. But small towns don't let hide. I was getting gas one Thursday when Mrs. Henderson from my mom's book club approached me. Sweet old lady who'd known me since I was 10. Marcus, honey, I heard about Sarah. I'm so sorry. Thank Mrs. Henderson. No, my daughter went through something similar. It gets better, dear. She meant well. But then she kept talking. Though I have to say, I always thought Sarah was a little too pretty for her own good. Girls like that, they need constant attention. Are probably better off without all that drama. The way she said it made me realize something horrible. People weren't just gossiping about Sarah cheating. They were gossiping about me. About how I wasn't enough to keep her. About how obvious it should have been that someone like her would eventually trade. I started hearing fragments of conversations that would stop when people saw me. At the hardware store. The coffee shop. Even at work. Should have seen it coming. She was way out of his league anyway. Heard he bought her some expensive jewelry right before she dumped him. That last one hit the worst because it was true. And it made me sound pathetic. Like I was trying to buy her love. Which, I guess, maybe I was. The worst part came 3 weeks later. I was at the bank, depositing my paycheck, when I saw them. Sarah and David, applying for account. She was wearing a ring. Not the necklace I'd saved for. But a diamond ring that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. She saw me first. Touched David's arm and whispered something. He looked over and smiled. Not mean or mocking. Just politely sympathetic. The kind of smile gives someone's embarrassing relative at a family gathering. Sarah walked over while David stayed at the counter. Marcus, hi, how are doing? Great, I lied. Good, that's good. She twisted the ring on her finger. Look, I wanted to thank again for being so understanding about everything. Not everyone would have handled it as maturely as did. Maturely? Like I'd had a choice, like I could have thrown a tantrum and changed anything. I hope we can still be friends, she continued. Eventually, I mean. When we're ready. I stared at her. This person I'd loved completely. This person I'd starved for. This person who was thanking me for my mature response to her betrayal. Sure, Sarah. Friends, she smiled. The same smile I'd fallen in love with 3 years ago. I'm glad. David and we're thinking about having an engagement party next month. Small thing, but I'd love her to come if feel to it. The audacity was breathtaking. I'll check my calendar, I said. After she walked away, I stood there watching them through the bank windows. Laughing together as they signed papers. Planning their future while I was still paying off the credit card debt from planning hours. That night, I called my mom. I heard, sweetie, she said before I could say anything. Mrs. Patterson told me at the grocery store. Of course she did. How are holding? I'm fine, Mom. No, not. I can hear it in voice. Sound like did when Dad left. I was 12 when my dad decided our family wasn't enough for him anymore. Found himself a secretary half his age and started anew in Phoenix. Left Mom to raise me alone on a teacher's salary. This isn't the same thing. I said. Isn't it? Someone love decided weren't worth fighting for. Mom. I'm not trying to, Marcus. I'm trying to help see that this pattern. It's not about not being enough. It's about them not knowing what they had. But late at night, lying in our bed that still smelled like her perfume, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe everyone else was right. Maybe Sarah was out of my league. Maybe I should have seen it coming. Maybe I was just the placeholder until someone better showed. The necklace was still in my sock drawer, but now it felt different. Not like evidence of my love, but evidence of my delusion. Proof that I'd been playing a game where I didn't even know the rules. I started working longer hours again. Not saving for anything this time. Just trying to exhaust enough to sleep without dreaming about her laugh in someone else's apartment. But exhaustion doesn't humiliation. It just makes too tired to pretend it doesn't. Sarah's engagement party happened on a Saturday in October. I know because I drove past the venue 3 times that day, hating each time I turned around to drive by again. I didn't go in. But I saw the cars, the laughter spilling out onto the sidewalk. She was living without me. That's when I realized I hadn't moved on. I'd just been existing in the space between who I used to be, and who I was supposed to become. The next Monday, something snapped. I was at work, loading trucks like always, when my supervisor Danny pulled me aside. Marcus, been putting in a lot of overtime lately, more than anyone else. Doing okay? I'm fine. Just need the money. For what? Or living in that same apartment, driving the same car. Where's all this money going? I couldn't tell him I was paying off debt from a relationship that never existed. That I was working to afford the ghost of someone who never loved me back. Just saving. I said. For what? I didn't have an answer. That night, I finally opened my bank statements. Really looked at them for the first time in months. All those extra shifts, all those doubled hours, and I was still barely breaking even. The credit card payment. The therapy sessions I'd started and quit after 3 visits because I couldn't afford them. The prescription for sleeping that didn't work anyway. I was working harder than ever and had less to show for it than when Sarah left. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was the realization that I didn't know how to want anything anymore. For 3 years, everything I wanted was about making Sarah happy. Now I was just empty. I tried dating. Downloaded the apps, went on a few coffee dates with women who seemed nice enough. But I kept comparing them to Sarah. Not in a good way. I kept looking for signs they were lying. Signs they were already thinking about someone else. Signs that I was just convenient until something better came along. Jessica was a teacher. Pretty, kind, laughed at my jokes. On our 3rd date, she mentioned an ex-boyfriend. He was sweet, but we just weren't compatible long term, she said. Know how it is. I didn't know how it is. All I heard was someone else who was sweet until she found someone more compatible. I made an excuse and left early. A month later, I saw Jessica holding hands with someone else at the farmer's market. A guy who looked like he could afford more than dinner at chain restaurants. They looked happy. I started avoiding dating altogether. Started avoiding most things altogether. The isolation became a choice instead of a consequence. Easier to stay home than risk more evidence that I wasn't enough for anyone. But the worst was yet to come. In December, 11 months after Sarah left, I got a text from an unknown number. A photo. Sarah in a wedding dress, beaming at the camera. The message read, "Thought should know we eloped. Thank for being so understanding about everything. I'll always be special to us, Sarah." She'd included me in their happiness. Like I was a family friend who'd brought them together instead of the person whose heart she'd shattered to make room for him. I stared at that photo for hours. Sarah looked radiant. Happier than I'd ever seen her in 3 years together. The dress probably cost more than the necklace I'd nearly killed to buy her. That's when I understood the real price of what had happened. It wasn't just that she'd cheated. It wasn't just that she'd left. It was that she'd discovered she could be happier without me than she'd ever been with me. All my sacrifice, all my love, all my effort had been inferior to 3 months with someone else. I wasn't just inadequate, I was a downgrade. 2 weeks later, I quit my job. Not for anything better, just quit. Danny tried to talk me out of it. "We're one of our best workers, Marcus. Don't make decisions when you're upset." "I'm not upset," I said, and I meant it. I wasn't upset anymore. I was hollow. I moved back in with my mom. 32 years old, sleeping in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by high school trophies that felt like they belonged to someone else. "This is temporary," Mom said. "Until figure things out." But I wasn't trying to figure anything out. I was just trying to disappear without actually dying. I got a part-time job at a gas station. Minimum wage, no benefits, no future. Perfect for someone who'd given on having one. The manager, Rita, was a woman in her 50s who'd been working retail her whole. After a few weeks she cornered me during a slow shift. "What happened to?" she asked. "What do mean? Or smart? Polite? Show on time, work hard." But her sleepwalking through like someone stole soul. "What happened? Just a bad breakup," I said. "Honey, I've had bad breakups. This isn't that. This is someone who convinced himself he deserved what happened to him." She was wrong. I didn't think I deserved it. I thought I was so that I'd never deserved anything else. Last week, exactly 1 year after the restaurant, I saw Sarah and David at the grocery store. She was pregnant. Glowing in that way pregnant women do when they're happy about it. David was pushing the cart, one hand on her back, protective and proud. They didn't see me. I watched them from the cereal aisle, debating between name brands and store brands, because I still couldn't afford to stop thinking about money. They were in the baby section, holding tiny clothes to each other, laughing about something, building a that started where ours ended. Sarah picked a small yellow outfit. Something gender, neutral and soft. She held it against her chest and smiled at David the way she used to smile at me. Except brighter. More real. That's when I finally understood. I hadn't lost the love of I'd lost someone who was never really mine to begin with. Someone who was just passing through my on her way to her actual. All that sacrifice. All that hunger. All that work. For someone who was always meant for someone else. I left my cart in the aisle and walked out. I'm writing this from my childhood bedroom at 3 a.m., surrounded by the debris of who I used to be. The necklace is still in my sock drawer, but now I know what it really represents. Not love. Not devotion. Just the expensive lesson that can't earn someone's heart by emptying own. I spent nights hungry, days working harder, and weeks saving silently for her happiness. But I never learned the most important thing: someone who could watch starve for their smile was never worthy of sacrifice. And the cruelest truth. She probably never asked me to. I chose to diminish for someone who was already planning to leave. I chose to believe that love was about what I could give instead of what we could build together. Now I'm 32. Living with my mother. Working for minimum wage. And afraid to want anything because wanting led me here. The only thing I've learned is this: when someone shows that love isn't enough to keep them, believe them the first time. Don't work harder, sacrifice more, or try to prove worth. Just walk away before forget who were without them. Because some people will take everything, give and still leave with nothing. And the worst part is realizing they were right to do it.